This content is not intended to replace professional, medical, or counseling advice. If you are dealing with a physical or mental health issue, it is crucial to seek help from a qualified healthcare provider. Hello friends, and welcome back to Drone Machine. This is Brother Poe. Today's topic is going to be on something that many people don't ever really think about when it comes to mindfulness, and that is what is being listened to when mindfulness is trying to be achieved or approached. So personally, I have almost 100% removed music from my life that contains words, song lyrics, mainly because, and I say this as a lifelong Deadhead and as a fan of 90s and 2000s and, just indie rock in general, from the origins of Yo La Tengo and Sonic Youth, and then moved into, the modern Pavement era of jangly indie rock. And a lot of that music from that era still carries a lot of weight with me. Just like a lot of Dead songs, a lot of live shows, they carry a lot of memory and weight in my life. But as I became more in tune with the world around me and how my actions and reactions were not so much governed by what I was putting in, but it really did allow me to wear a mask or a veil. So, on today's Drone Machine, as we move through it, we are going to discuss how to listen, why we listen to music without, or sound compositions without any sort of lyrical representation. Now, what's really interesting about this, and we'll cover that as we move into this episode, is that this idea is commonly used as to focus on things that almost seem ridiculous. So, let's get into the conversation. Let's get into this episode of Drone Machine. Alright, as always, when I start an episode of Drone Machine, you're going to have a beat. And today we're going to remove that beat and we're just going to add in the background drone. Also, my normal guided meditation type soothing voice is going to be replaced with my everyday speaking voice in order to really get this topic driven home. And this topic is mainly about how we allow others to influence us through sound. Like I said at the beginning of the intro, I have sworn off music with words, and I say that with lyrics, and I say that as I explained, but from time to time I'll still catch myself listening and singing along with something. And I'll find that if I'm in long drives or if I'm on public transportation, that I am still not 100% listening to what we would call new classical, ambient, meditative music. I use the word music loosely because when I think of music, I think of something that has a beat and that you can dance to it. And that's not where mindfulness comes into play. So it's taken me a few years to get to the point, and I gotta say that Bound at the Wrists has really helped me get to appreciate everything that goes into the creation of ambient music or sound composition. Sound composition that almost teeters on sound design like you'd find in a film, to where it's completely, listen to the background. You hear what's going on there. You can hear that there's all kinds of swirls and things moving around. And what's gotten me to this point to where I really put a lot of value into this type of sound atmosphere is I no longer feel like I'm controlled by somebody else's thoughts or philosophies in a repetitive motion. So when you listen to your favorite song over and over again, and there's lots of them, and I gotta say that I am so guilty of this, is that you start to empathize with the fictional character of the song. You start to imagine what that metaphor is and how it applies to you. It becomes personalized. And I feel that if we personalize somebody else's creativity like that, that we are now removing our own personality from our lives. And case in point, I refer back to, and this is probably going to be a very poor example, but there was a film that was created called Velvet Goldmine. And there's a scene in that film where the character is explaining to their parents that not only is this artist, but the words that this artist is saying is him. It fully describes me. And I can understand that, as growing up in the 90s when we were really kind of boxed into who we were by what we listened to or the style of what we listened to. That focused our attention to develop who we were. So I understand that. And that, I feel, is very much a growing pain of consciousness, of modern day consciousness, of Western consciousness, of one becoming aware with who they are. Now, that mechanism and that tool that we used as a culture then has been, of course, commercialized, and it has been monetized, and it has been shaped into this monster that really does not identify with most of us today. And I'll use another example here, in which some might consider it a very poor example, and it might not have any legs depending on when you hear this, but the 2026 halftime show, which was a large thing in the media because people didn't identify in the States with what the main performer was doing during that show, because one, that main performer did not project what is supposed to happen at this event. And when you weigh in all of that, and then you ask yourself, how does this apply to me? And then you try to find that connection, you feel an inner struggle coming on that you really weren't prepared for, because why should this apply to you? And this goes deeper into more of a persona and more of a philosophy that's based around whether or not you care about this team or care about this idea. But it's a really good example where something that is presented to us today just doesn't hold any weight. And it doesn't hold any weight for me, and I know it probably doesn't hold any weight for a lot of you guys out there. So that's where I feel it's very important that we learn to appreciate sound design, music, or compositions that does not have any lyrics or words to them. And I'm going to go as far as to say, even with like spoken word pieces, somebody who will then recite poetry or whatnot, that if we can kind of carve out a space where we are solely just listening for the fact that the sound can take us to some other place within our own thoughts to help us analyze and see our problems, then we have won. But if we just use music, and I'm going to say music here, as a vehicle to control our emotions, then we are never really facing our emotions or our problems. We are just allowing somebody else to do it for us. And that's not healthy. That's not a good, mindful place to be. So I challenge you as listeners to think about everything that I just said and think about where you spend or where you dedicate your listening time and how you dedicate that listening time to a space. Now, you've heard me mention in other episodes of Drone Machine where I talk about listening to the background and like feeling the ambience around you, and I think that is really important. I think that when you do take a walk in order to shave off some sort of anxiety you're feeling, or if you're just going to stand and wait for something, to take in the sounds around you, take in the conversations, take in the noises that are happening, take in the ambience of the space, the room, the environment. Listen to that light bulb buzzing. Listen to that fan running from that horrible rooftop unit where nobody's changed a belt in years, and it's got a squeak that happens on every 15 seconds. It just makes a noise that you could let it drive you crazy, or you could see it as a focal point. Now, ambient music is wonderful, and there's so much of it out there, and there's so much good stuff. So please explore it, whatever service you're using, however you're getting your fill of it. Explore it deeply, explore the artists creating it, and don't forget to explore Bound at the Wrists as somebody who helps me create the background for Drone Machines. He also is an ambient artist who deals in a lot of different sounds and feelings, as you guys know, and you could hear in the background here. So, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for spending time with me today. And please, if you should have any input into this, feel free to contact me. All right. So, let's just let that background drone just carry us away. Carry us away. I can switch over to my more soothing voice, but we'll just let this carry us away. Carry us away. Enjoy the sound. Enjoy the feeling of the drone. Enjoy the drone machine. This is Brother Poe, and I thank you very much for your time today.